Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The quiet town of Willow Creek, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, had always preserved an air of innocence. Children rode their bicycles along the tree-lined streets while neighbors exchanged pleasant greetings. Yet, beneath this idyllic surface, shadows lurked, waiting to disrupt the serenity. September 12th, 2022. Started like any other day. Birds chirped cheerily in the dawn light as the sun elevated itself over the horizon, casting a golden hue on the quaint houses dotted along Maple Street. But as the clock struck 7:30 a.m., their calm facade shattered. A faint scream echoed through the neighborhood, piercing the tranquility. Residents rushed to their windows, their hearts racing. The sound originated from the Peterson residence, a charming two-story home that had once been a symbol of warmth and love. There, a quiet family of four was thrown into chaos. Inside, panic unfolded as the parents, David and Laura, rushed to their daughter's room, only to find 10-year-old Emma gone, her bed untouched, her cherished stuffed animal left behind. Within hours, a frantic search commenced, with residents forming search parties to canvass the surrounding woods and fields. As the sun dipped below the horizon, hope wavered and fear crept in, offering a reminder that darkness could invade even the brightest corners of Willow Creek. The community, once an emblem of safety, found itself grappling with an unsettling reality. Something sinister had broken their peace. The Polaris County Sheriff's Department was alerted, dispatching officers to the scene. Detective Clara Reynolds, a seasoned investigator with a knack for unraveling complex cases, arrived at the Peterson home. She observed the aftermath as she stepped through the front door, instinctively scanning for clues in a world that had been irrevocably altered. The victim, Emma Peterson, was described as a vibrant and curious child who had brightened every room she entered, with her chestnut curls and an ever-present constellation of freckles dotting her nose. She was the kind of girl who lit up the playground with her laughter. Her heart overflowed with kindness, always sharing her toys and seeking to make friendships wherever she went. On the day of her disappearance, Emma had been eagerly awaiting her favorite day of the week. Saturday. It was the day she attended her art class at the community center, a place that had nurtured her creativity and allowed her to express herself in vivid hues. As her father prepared breakfast that morning, Emma rushed around the house, her excitement palpable. He was concocting an idea in her mind for a painting depicting her favorite scene from the woods behind their home. A blend of verdant greens and sunshine yellow. The Peterson home held echoes of familial bonds. Photographs lining the walls told stories of laughter, love, and holidays spent together. Laura's handmade quilts adorned every room, imbued with warmth and comfort. As Detective Reynolds wandered through the living room, she paused at a recent picture taken during the family's beach trip that summer. Emma, with her carefree laughter and vibrant spirit, was prominently featured, splashing water at her younger brother Ben. But beneath that lightheartedness lay a troubling truth. Emma had been a victim of bullying at school. A small group of girls had taken, taunting her about her appearance and interests, leading Emma to retreat into her art rather than fight back. As Reynolds learned more about Emma's life, she understood that this sweet child had been grappling with shadows of her own long before her physical absence. The young detective stood in Emma's room, the stillness overwhelming. The room was untouched since that fateful morning, The bed was perfectly made, and a half-finished drawing of a doe stared up from the desk beneath the sunlight streaming through the curtain. In the stillness, the weight of the situation hit deep, demanding clarity and resolution for Emma and for the family that loved her. The crime scene. The sun had dipped low, casting eerie shadows as Detective Clara Reynolds surveyed the Peterson home. Outside, the ambient sounds of sirens and voices melded into a haunting backdrop, reminding everyone that life had turned abruptly chaotic. Inside, Reynolds stepped into the living room, where a uniformed officer meticulously documented the scene. Every detail mattered: a crumpled piece of paper, a misplaced shoe, the entry point of a fleeting moment of horror. Reynolds made her way upstairs, her senses heightened. The first room was Ben's, filled with racing car posters and scattered toys, untouched excitement suspended in time. But it was Emma's room that drew her in like a gravitational pull. Here, childhood innocence mingled with confusion. The enchanted fairy lights strung across the walls twinkled softly, as if they were unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded. The bed, neatly made, told a story of abrupt loss. Just beside it lay Emma's favorite pink backpack, unzipped and revealing a collection of brightly colored art supplies, each item untouched, a testament to plans unfulfilled. Reynolds noted the oddly placed geometric pattern on the carpet, her mind registering the subtlety of something amiss. Crouching to examine it further, she spotted indents in the carpet fibers, suggesting something heavy had been set down, or perhaps dragged. Her heart quickened. Any sign could be a thread that might unravel this troubling mystery. The detective pulled out her notepad and jotted down her observations before carefully examining the window. Its latch secure and showing no signs of forced entry. What had happened here? What had happened here? As officers outside spoke to neighbors and collected statements, Reynolds felt the shifting burden of responsibility. She needed to dissect every moment and every angle of this case to bring Emma back to her family. Tending the room, she noticed a faint smudge of what appeared to be dirt on the wooden floor, a stark contrast against the polished sheen. The detective leaned closer, examining it under the light. It only deepened the intrigue, planting seeds of suspicion about who could have entered this sacred space. With every detail cataloged, Reynolds left the room. There was a sense in her gut that the answer lay within this home, hidden in the intricate tapestry of a little girl's life, and she vowed to uncover. The early investigation. As night enveloped Willow Creek, the urgency of the investigation deepened. The sweet smell of autumn leaves was replaced with a palpable tension that hung in the chilly air. Detective Clara Reynolds gathered her team in the Peterson living room, now a hub of frantic activity, transformed from a sanctuary of childhood to the epicenter of a growing investigation. "All right, listen up," Reynolds began, her voice steady despite the gnawing apprehension in her gut. "We need to expand the search radius. I want teams going through the neighborhood, beyond every wooded area and field within a 5-mile radius. Talk to residents. Ask about anything unusual they might have seen in the last 24 hours. The detectives dispersed to carry out their orders as the sound of radios crackled in the background. Reynolds focused on a crucial area, the potential witnesses. She turned to the officers stationed outside it, engaging with residents who had gathered on the lawn, their faces painted with anxiety and disbelief. One neighbor, a young woman named Julie, stepped forward. "I saw a blue van parked nearby yesterday. I thought it was strange because it wasn't one of the locals. It left around the same time Emma went missing," she said, her voice quavering slightly. Reynolds noted the details meticulously. Did you get a look at the driver? She asked, leaning closer. I saw a man. He had dark hair and wore a cap. It was just odd seeing a strange vehicle here, Julie recalled, her brow furrowing at the memory. With this new lead, Reynolds felt a flicker of hope amidst the clouds of worry. The blue van could be pivotal. She immediately dispatched officers to canvass the neighborhood, urging them to look for surveillance cameras that might have captured the vehicle's image. Next, Reynolds turned her attention to Emma's friends. Gathering the girls who had shared art class with Emma, the detective set up a small, informal interview in the dining room. The girls exchanged glances, skepticism etched on their young faces. They fidgeted with their hands, glancing at their parents, present for the support of their terrified children. Can you tell me about Emma? Was she facing any troubles at school? Any conflicts? Reynolds asked gently, trying to build rapport without igniting fear. After a tense silence, one girl named Lily couldn't hold back. There were some girls who were mean to her. They teased her about her drawings and said she was weird. She revealed, her voice quaking. Reynolds absorbed the words, her mind racing. It became clear that the investigation needed to cast a wider net. This wasn't merely an abduction. The roots of this situation might run deeper, tangled in the complexities of childhood pain and vulnerabilities. The clock was ticking, and the pieces were just beginning to come together. How far would she need to dig to uncover the truth? The dead ends. Dawn broke over Willow Creek, illuminating the weary faces of search teams that had spent the night scouring the woods and surrounding areas. Every lead, each whispered rumor, filled the air with a sense of hope laced with despair. But as days turned into restless nights, the weight of uncertainty began to bear down heavily on Detective Clara Reynolds. He returned to the station, where whiteboards filled with notes and photographs sprawled across the room, evidence of the frantic efforts to piece together Emma's whereabouts. Reynolds frowned as she reviewed the latest updates. The blue van had yet to surface. Local surveillance footage showed nothing extraordinary. The odd man described by Julie remained elusive, fading like smoke instead of taking form. Frustrated, she called in the detectives involved. We need to set up another round of interviews with Emma's classmates and their parents. I want to explore any connections to the bullying further, she urged, feeling adrenaline surge to fight the impending helplessness. The interviews yielded little. Many parents had heard secondhand about the teasing, but insisted it was harmless. Kids say things, you know. It's part of growing up. My daughter says Emma sometimes gets a little moody. But all kids do. One mother remarked dismissively. Reynolds felt weighed down by the responses, feeling silenced by the town's unwillingness to confront the darker aspects of childhood. Too many seemed to shrug off the bullying as mere playground antics, ignoring that for Emma, the taunting echoed deep in her heart. Needing a break from the frustration, she ventured outside for some fresh air, her eyes scanning the quiet streets of Willow Creek. The community seemed to have reset, as if the disappearance hovered just outside their collective consciousness. But inside her, there was a burning fire for justice. Later that day, a bad lead surfaced. An anonymous tip about a supposed sighting of Emma at a distant diner didn't pan out. The waitress had misidentified a child with similar features. Disheartened, Reynolds slumped into a chair, running her fingers through her hair. The momentum was stalling, and doubt crept in, gilding the urgency with a sense of helplessness. Investigations ran cold, tightening like a vice around her thoughts. Each dead end only pushed Emma further into the distance. And as the autumn leaves began to fall, Reynolds felt an unsettling chill within. Would they find her before time and memory conspired to bury the case in darkness? Everything hung in a delicate balance, and the detective knew they needed to dig deeper, even if it meant confronting the town's darkest secrets, to bring hope to a family shattered by loss. A break in the case, amidst the persistent despair surrounding the investigation, an unexpected glimmer of hope arrived one crisp October morning. The sun barely pierced through the clouds as Detective Clara Reynolds arrived at the station. A bleary-eyed officer approached her with urgency painted on his face. "Detective, you need to see this," he said, handing her a stack of photographs, each bearing a date stamp from the days following Emma Peterson's disappearance. The images were grainy, but unmistakable. They showed the blue van parked outside the edge of the park, not far from the Petersons' neighborhood. Taken during the early hours on the same day, Emma went missing. Reynolds' heart raced as she leaned closer to the photographs. The van, with its distinctive dent on the front bumper, was the same one described by Julie. "Where did these come from?" she demanded, excitement mingling with caution. "Security footage from a nearby gas station." The clerk in the morning shift remembered it because of the odd behavior of the driver, a man matching the description we have. "He said he seemed nervous. Kept looking back toward the car," the officer explained, his voice tinged with adrenaline. Clarity began to form in Reynolds' mind as she absorbed the details. The connection felt stronger now. "I want you to track down that gas station clerk. See if he can give us a more detailed description, or recognize the driver if we show him lineups." With renewed vigor, Reynolds gathered her team again, spreading out the newfound evidence on the whiteboard that had once felt like a tomb for lost hope. The scratching of pens filled the air as notes were added furiously alongside the photographs of the van. A path was visibly unfolding. It was time for action. They tracked down the clerk, a young man in his early 20s. During the interview, he recalled the man in detailed dark hair, a baseball cap, and an unmistakably grim demeanor that sent chills down his spine. "I kept thinking, what kind of person acts like that in broad daylight?" the clerk said, uneasily shifting in his seat. "Did you happen to see if he had someone else with him?" Reynolds pressed, not wanting to miss a single piece of information. The clerk's expression darkened. "He mentioned a name, Gordon. I remember because he sounded really angry when he said it, like he was speaking to someone on the phone." "Do you still have the surveillance footage?" Reynolds asked, her pulse quickening. "Yes, I can pull it up," he replied. As they sat together in the small back office, Reynolds felt her heart race, a mixture of urgency and fear. And finally, as they watched the shaky footage come to life, she saw it. The vehicle, the man, and a shadowy figure in the back seat, barely discernible. The pieces began to fit into the puzzle. They were getting closer to the truth. With fresh determination, Reynolds knew they had taken a significant step forward, venturing deeper into the mystery surrounding Emma's disappearance. Every lead was vital, and for the first time in days, hope fluttered cautiously in her chest. The suspect, with the surveillance footage revealing a shadowy figure in the blue van, the investigation took a sharper turn. "Detective, Clara Reynolds and her team worked diligently over the following days, cross-referencing known associates with possible ties to the man who had driven the van. The name Morgan echoed through her mind like a distant bell, each chime reigniting determination. They began to piece together declarations of local sightings, providing a sketch of the character in question. A recurring figure at the fringes of the town, a drifter known for his unpredictable behavior. His name was Morgan Klein, a man with a troubled past rife with run-ins with law enforcement. His reputation, marked by whispers of domestic issues and erratic outbursts, painted a formidable picture. Within hours, Reynolds sent a team to Klein's last known address, a decrepit trailer on the outskirts of Willow Creek. They arrived under a gray sky, heavy with the promise of rain. The area felt desolate, home to remnants of distant lives and forgotten dreams, and every cracked window seemed to reflect their doubts. Moving cautiously, the officers approached the trailer, their hands resting near their holsters as they knocked firmly on the door. Seconds ticked by like hours, the atmosphere laced with tension, until it creaked open. Morgan Klein connected the dots instantaneously with his wide, vaunted eyes. "I didn't do anything. Just leave me alone," he shouted, backing away from the doorway, bloodshot eyes skirting suspiciously. "Mr. Klein, we need to ask you some questions regarding Emma Peterson's disappearance," an officer stated firmly but calmly. Remaining steadfast, Reynolds stood in the background observing. Klein's unkempt hair and stubble gave him a wild appearance. Yet, it was the shiver in his stance that held her attention. As he began to mumble incoherently, details slipped from the cluttered narratives. He had been in town visiting, was passing through. Wasn't what it seemed. None of it made sense. None of it made sense. Reynolds felt the rush of her instincts, surging forward. "Let's not make this difficult, Morgan. Witnesses saw you near the park the day Emma went missing," Reynolds interjected, stepping forward, her voice steady. "Your blue van was recorded leaving the area. For a fleeting moment," Klein's bravado crumbled. Tear flashed in his eyes, and he began to stammer, head shaking fiercely. "I didn't take her. I swear, I was just picking up a packet." The officers exchanged knowing glances. Reynolds sensed a storm brewing behind his defiance, a desperate act tinged with guilt. She pressed on, her voice low but commanding. "Then we'll need you to come down to the station for further questioning. Ben will need you to come down to the station for further questioning. It's the only way to clear your name." As Reynolds stepped back, she felt a part of her tangle with anxiety. Hines clung to her like morning dew, but a gut instinct urged her forward. There was more to uncover. The puzzle was far from complete, but Klein held the next pieces, and she was determined to coax them out, no matter how deep they lay buried. The threads of the investigation had tightened. The shadows were lengthening, and time was slipping through her fingers. The trial. Months passed after the whirlwind of frantic searching came to an agonizing halt. Emma Peterson had been found, her young life tragically extinguished, the nightmare that overtook Willow Creek demanding justice. It was a heavy weight that uniformly settled on the hearts of the community, the edges shaped by both grief and anger. As the trial of Morgan Klein began, the air hung thick with an undercurrent of fractured hope. Seated in the small courthouse, Detective Clara Reynolds felt the palpable tension in the room as the proceedings commenced. The wall-to-wall audience brought together families, friends of the Petersons, and curious onlookers. The courtroom felt charged, echoing memories of innocence snuffed out too soon. Reynolds took a deep breath, the specter of Emma's vibrant spirit hovering just beyond reach. Morgan Klein was brought in, his disheveled appearance reflecting the chaos that had unraveled his life. Sitting at the defendant's table, he seemed smaller, more defeated than the persona he had wielded during the initial interviews. As the prosecution laid out the evidence, the blue van, the timeline of Emma's disappearance, the harrowing details of her fate, it was a verbal unraveling of the events that would reverberate through the community. A narrative wove in and out of the courtroom, painting a horrific picture for all to witness. Witnesses recounted their observations while officers discussed the police work that led them to Klein. Reynolds sat sentinel, her heart heavy with the weight of each testimony. She remembered the moment they found Emma, how the light of her belonging felt extinguished forever. As the trial progressed, Klein's defense attempted to dismantle the prosecution's case. They pointed out the lack of hard evidence directly linking him to the crime scene. The defense's arguments, however, were riddled with inconsistencies, a strategy prone to unraveling beneath scrutiny. A chip in Klein's resolve became evident as he struggled to maintain his facade of nonchalance. Reynolds maintained a steady gaze upon Klein throughout, but was shocked when he suddenly broke down on the witness stand, claiming to have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Such a familiar refrain in cases where the truth proved far more sinister. Why would I hurt a little girl? I am not that kind of person, he cried, eyes wild with emotion. Yet the intensity of his statements only seemed to further entrap him. Each word echoed hollowly in the ears of those gathered. In the final days of the trial, evidence of his prior offenses surfaced, revealing a tangled history that cast a long shadow over his claims. The jury deliberated for hours, emotions throbbing in the courtroom like a raw nerve. Reynolds waited, heart pounding as the warmth of community enveloped her again. Then came the verdict. The judge's voice echoed through the tension-laden air and struck a chord of finality. We find the defendant guilty. Tears, both of relief and sorrow, fell as those who knew Emma gathered. Justice had been served, but it would never erase the emptiness left behind. Reynolds leaned against the cool wall of the courtroom, breath escaping her as she allowed herself a moment of closure. Emma Peterson would not be forgotten. Darkness had retreated from the light, and in that, a flicker of hope remained. The aftermath would still demand resilience, but Emma had sparked a fire within her community, one that would forever seek to prevent such tragedy. The aftermath. The road outside the courthouse felt different after the verdict. Aurora light filtered through the trees, autumn leaves clinging tenaciously to their branches. Yet the beauty of nature felt stark, contrasting sharply with the lingering grief that enveloped Willow Creek. Detective Clara Reynolds walked through the town as life resumed its routines. Yet a heaviness hung in the air, the whispers of what had transpired lingering in every corner. In the weeks following the trial, the Peterson family found themselves navigating an unfamiliar landscape of profound loss. Laura Peterson, Emma's mother, held a quiet strength, yet her eyes reflected the haunting pain of a future without her daughter. The media spotlight had shifted away, but the threads of the story still connected the community in shared sorrow. Reynolds arrived at the Peterson home one afternoon, not to discuss the investigation, but to lend her support. She knocked softly on the door, stepping into the warmth that once overflowed with laughter, but now felt hollow. Each room echoing memories of a beloved child. "Detective, thank you for coming," Laura said, her voice a mix of gratitude and fatigue. "Of course, I wanted to check on you all," Reynolds replied, stepping into the living room cluttered with art supplies that had not been touched since Emma's disappearance. "Emma always said her art was her voice. You know," Laura murmured, her gaze drifting to a colorful canvas propped against the wall, an unfinished painting that had captured Emma's essence in vibrant hues. The image sparked something within Reynolds, a bittersweet reminder that art could transcend heartbreak. "Your daughter's spirit lives on through her work," she said softly. "It can become a powerful tribute." Meanwhile, the investigation had left a mark on Reynolds as well. There were sleepless nights spent replaying the case in her mind, grappling with the feeling that more could have been done. Yet she also realized the importance of sharing Emma's story, of making sure others remained vigilant. She began organizing community meetings to raise awareness about bullying and safety, transformed by the urgency of a tragedy that could have been avoided. As she spoke to local schools, addressing students and parents alike, Reynolds ignited conversations that had long been overshadowed. The community rallied around prevention programs and support systems, determined not to allow another child to slip through the cracks. It became a movement, uniting people in remembrance of Emma and fostering understanding, empathy, and ultimately, change. In the months that followed, a memorial garden for Emma was established in the town square, vibrant flowers flourishing in a space dedicated to her memory. There, a plaque stood, inscribed with words chosen by her family, in honor of Emma Peterson, who painted the world in colors of kindness. For Reynolds, the garden symbolized resilience. He watched as families gathered, children played, and laughter broke through the shadows. It served as a reminder that although darkness had tried to claim them, light persisted, nourished by shared love and collective action. As winter arrived, cloaking the town in snow, Reynolds felt a quiet resolve settle within her. The aftermath of Emma's disappearance would forever shake Willow Creek, but hope was not lost. It had taken root, growing stronger with each passing day. In time, healing would come, and the community would emerge not unscathed, but united in a cause bigger than themselves. Emma would not be forgotten. Her legacy would ripple through the lives of many, illuminating paths forged in the wake of tragedy. Reflection. The passage of time often has a way of softening the bitter edges of grief, yet the absence of Emma Peterson remained a raw wound in the hearts of those who loved her. Detective Clara Reynolds often found herself returning to the memorial garden, not just to pay tribute, but to reflect on the profound impact the case had on her life and the community. Standing among the blooming flowers, she recalled the innocence that once characterized Willow Creek, a town now forever marked by tragedy. The heavy silence that had blanketed them during the early days of the investigation gave way to a collective determination, a loud proclamation that loss would not define them. Each flower's vibrant color reminded Reynolds of Emma's spirit, the laughter that once danced through the halls of the Peterson home. Community had faced the darkness together, pulling one another from the depths of sorrow and igniting awareness around issues that many had chosen to ignore. Conversations about bullying, mental health, and child safety became commonplace. Not just programs praised at town meetings, but as active dialogues in classrooms and homes. Young voices spoke out, emboldened and empowered, learning that they were not alone and that support could be found in unexpected places.